So a friend came up to me recently and said, "Man, I feel like you haven't done an episode on money in a long time. Love your podcast, but that was some of the stuff that you really started with and got me into it." And I said, "You know what? You're right. I haven't done an episode on money because what I found is that as I continue to work with people and as I continue to talk to them, the money stuff is just an expression of bigger problems that are going on. And that's why I've continued to find myself working more backwards in the process, I guess, of just getting down to some of the most basic questions like, what do you want? Why do you want it? How are you going to get it? Because when I talk to people about even just those three questions, let alone anything else, it's like they don't have good answers for it. So if I start further down the process and we're going, okay, well, what's your money spending habits and, doing what Dave Ramsey does. And, oh, well, you went out and bought a big truck and, it's $80,000 in debt and you only make this much. It's like, they're just dealing with the symptoms. All right. I'm more dealing with the root cause of things because what I find is that people are incredibly responsible with their money when they know what they want, when they are actively building something that is important to them, that's rooted in meaning. And people just don't know. They just don't know. And I don't blame them because distractions are so pervasive in our life right now. And, that's why for this episode, I am going to talk about money, but I'm going to talk about it from three different angles that I don't see a lot of people talking about. Okay. So these are silent financial killers that nobody is budgeting for. These are things that are, no matter how well laid of a plan you have, when you see that, damn it, I had a hiccup this month, we overspent in this area, whatever the case is, normally it's coming from one of these root causes. Now, what you end up spending that money on, maybe you did retail therapy on Amazon or went on, into some stores that you normally don't go into and you bought some things, or, you went nuts on your Pokemon and basketball card collection because you just wanted to feel something positive. Like those are the expressions, the manifestations of a lot of these root causes that I'm going to talk about. So the first one is convenience spending. So convenience spending happens very, very quickly. Sometimes this can be things like impulse buys. The impulse buys is more of a term that is used in the advertising and in the marketing world. And normally what you think of with something like that is like, when you go to the grocery store and you're checking out and they've got a whole bunch of magazines, the candy's right there. They are items that you don't need, but you also don't think that much about because they're tiny little pleasures. They don't cost a lot, and it's just an impulse. Yeah, I feel like a candy bar right now. Oh, you know what? Maybe I will read that trash magazine later. Whatever the case is. And then it's like, oh, $5 here, $6 there, whatever. They've got a little bit more of your money, and you have something that you don't need. Those are impulse buys. That is an element of convenience spending, but convenience spending is a little bit wider than that. A lot of times we see convenience spending in food budgets. So whenever I'm going over things, I would say food budgets are probably the number one area where people are able to optimize and save themselves hundreds of dollars a month and end up eating like healthier foods because of it. Because normally what happens is with convenience spending, you have people, they don't have any type of food system. Normally there's two adults that are both working. So you don't have like one adult home in the house that can prepare meals regularly or anything like that. And then everybody's tired. They work their day jobs. They had to take the kids to practice, do all these other things. And then they're just calling each other and it's the last decision of the day. And they're like, hey, like, what do you want to eat? Okay, can you just pick something up? Isn't that normally how it goes? Or can you just order something? They use Grubhub. By the way, don't use apps like Grubhub and Uber Eats. They are terrible for local restaurants. Okay. It's so much better if you just order straight from the restaurant and if you can pick it up yourself on the way back. A lot of people don't recognize this, but a lot of restaurants are actually losing money with the deals that Uber Eats creates and different things like that. So that's a whole different side thing. But hey, you guys wanted me to talk about money? I'm talking about money. So, I care a lot about small business owners. I care a lot about entrepreneurs. Being in the food business is a tough business, especially right now with the rising cost of everything. So if you really want to support your local businesses, don't just order from there with a delivery service. Go and pick it up yourself. That's one of the best case scenarios for everybody. But that's an example of convenience spending. We didn't have a plan. We didn't meal prep. We didn't do whatever. So we just, okay, yeah, can you just pick up something? Okay. And that is something that we see in our lives across the board. It's really, I've always thought it was interesting that you can go to the grocery store and you can get a 2 liter for the same price that you can get a 20 ounce that's in the cooler because it's cold and ready to drink. It's convenient. That 2 liter is not ready to drink. Nobody likes warm soda. So it's just about convenience factors. Okay. That is all around us. So the question to ask is, where is my unpreparedness leading to convenient spending in my life? There are other areas where that can all pop up, but that's a good question to kind of help you diagnose that. So the next one is decision fatigue costs. And I can use this exact same example with dinner. This is a perfect example. It happens all the time. Again, you have 2 adults that are working, picking up the kids, you're coming home, you've both worked a long day, you didn't meal prep, you don't have any kind of plans for meals during the week or any type of food systems or anything like that. So what do? You don't want this is dinner, like literally, they have had therapists report on this. This is one of the most overwhelming decisions that an adult has to make in their day. What do you want for dinner? Why is that? Why is that such a daunting question? Because it's the last big decision in a person's day, usually. It's the last big thing that requires effort. We have been burnt out in the mornings and getting ready and trying to have some type of routine and do all the BS stuff that we see on social media of having the perfect, sun salutations and yoga and ice baths and reading your Bible and like all these things. And then we're stressed out because we didn't do it exactly the way we were supposed to. The kids barely got to school on time. One of them forgot their lunch at the house. You get to work, it's chaos. You don't have systems in place. All these things are happening. You're putting out fires. You're doing this. You get to 5 o'clock. You log out. You go pick them up. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you don't. It doesn't matter because you're overstimulated. You don't have proper boundaries. And what the hell are we doing for dinner? Does that ring a bell with anybody? Do you feel the anxiety? Do you feel how this thing that for hundreds of years in multiple cultures still around the world, like Italy, this is something to look forward to, dinner, a meal together, but we view it as such a huge chore. That's decision fatigue. And because of that, that costs us. Because again, it leads to, okay, well, we only have so much money for, budgeted for eating out, but 5 times a month, we ate out when we were planning to eat at home. And because of that, our cost ballooned. So that's another example of decision fatigue costs. Decision fatigue can happen a lot in business too. Business owners can become overwhelmed with things, and a lot of times they can look at something and say, "Well, you know what? I just just go and just fix it. I don't care. Like, just get whatever done." Sometimes as homeowners that can happen. We don't want to have to make a decision on what it takes to fix something. So it's like, listen, I'll just get a new one. Okay. Well, what if we fixed it? What if we evaluated these options? I don't care. Just go get a new one. All right. So that is where, to decide means to cut off. That's what that actually means. And for many of us, it can be very difficult to do that because we already feel like we're making so many decisions in a day. And 2 ways that you can get around decision fatigue is, number 1, eliminate something in your life that is causing you to have to make a lot of decisions. The next thing you can do is optimize. You can optimize certain systems in your life. You can make certain things, a process or simpler, or you can delegate, a decision to somebody and having to, to do this. And then the last thing that you can do is, to just reduce your overall anxiety level by realizing that it's okay. I'm safe. Whatever decision I'm about to make, things are going to work out for the best. Okay. Because I'm going to make the best decision that I can make and learn to trust yourself again. A lot of decision fatigue is happening because, at least in their minds, people feel like they're not making good decisions. So because they don't feel like they're making good decisions, they don't want to make more decisions. So there's a lot of different things that can contribute to decision fatigue costs. But the point is that can lead to excessive spending because that's when we start making bad decisions. And that's something we have to be careful for. Third thing, and the last one that I'm going to talk about for this is lifestyle creep, but there's a little bit of a caveat here. We're all aware of lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep, if you haven't heard that term in a long time or before, it's basically when you get a 25% raise and then you raise your spending levels to 25%. And a lot of times that actually puts you in a deficit because people will go, okay, I'm making an extra $2,000 a month. I went from, making 60,000 to, what would that be? 84,000, whatever. I can't do math right now. So, but I'm making an extra 2,000 a month gross. And then what happens is you don't calculate taxes coming out. You don't calculate, things going into your 401k. You don't calculate all these other things. And then you raise your spending. And actually you're like, oh man, I raised my spending by $2,000. And that $2,000 I'm making is actually only like $1,300 because of all these other things. Or maybe you do make $1,300 more hitting the paycheck, and then you end up spending $1,300 more. Well, you're right back where you started. You're not able to save money or invest. So that's lifestyle creep. But here's a caveat I want to throw on it. A lot of people that I work with are aware of lifestyle creep, and they try to be careful with it. But where it slips in and it gets really sneaky is when we disguise lifestyle creep as something we've earned. Okay. So I'm going to pick on my wife a little bit. I love her to death. Her journey financially from an emotional perspective, so proud of her, of how she has changed over the years to the point where it's almost bad. Like I almost have to tell her, like, please go spend some money on yourself. But when we first met, she was $265,000 in debt. She had gone to some very nice schools, went to medical school to become a physician assistant, different things like that, had a lot of debt. And when she came out, she was making pretty good money. It was just her living on her own, different things like that. She had a pretty nice apartment. And her mentality coming out was, I have, for the past 7 years, been going through college. I have gone through PA school. Now I'm finally making some money. I have a big girl job and I have earned this. I am going to go shopping every other week because I want to. And I'm going to spend money on this because I want to. I have earned this to some degree. But here's the problem. $5,000 doesn't give a damn what you feel like you've earned. You have to pay that back. And that was one of the conversations that me and her had to have early on as, things started really to get serious between us before I would even consider proposing. I needed to see what her mentality was towards that debt because I was debt free outside of my mortgage. So for me to take on $265,000, which at the time was more than my mortgage. My mortgage was $212,000 when I bought that house. And I'm like, here's a loan. Like, holy cow, like 265. We're not going to pay this off over the next 20 years with all the interest that accrues with it. It was like 7% or something she had on her loan. It was eating her alive, but she wasn't focused on it. She's like, I'm paying the minimums. I'm being responsible there. And then I'm just doing this other stuff because I have earned this. And it's hard to say, yeah, you may have earned the income that you are getting, but it doesn't mean it's the right decision. Okay, we have to be careful with what we believe we've earned. I do believe that's a powerful mentality that we can use for good, right? So I don't want to sit here and say, like, don't believe you've earned anything. That's not true. You don't deserve anything. That's totally different. Talking about what we deserve versus what we earn are two totally different conversations, okay? And I am totally on team earn. What have you earned? Show me the receipts, all right? But the challenge is when what we believe we've earned, whether we've earned it or not, is this responsible? Is this the best thing to do with our money? Okay? When my wife was deciding to go out and treat herself to, these shopping sprees, had she earned the right to do that? Well, she wasn't putting it on credit cards. She was paying it off with the money that she was getting in her bank account, and she wasn't going more into debt. So, and she was just maintaining the debt that she had. She just wasn't totally paying attention to the long-term consequences of not getting ahead of that. So, yeah, I could make the argument that, yes, she had earned those shopping sprees, going out and doing that. But is that the best decision of what you can do with it, regardless? Again, This comes back to those three foundational questions and other ones that we can ask about, what we want. But if you can just define with extreme clarity, what do you want? Why do you want it? How are you going to get it? If you can truly answer those questions to the point where you can write each one down in a single sentence and it's that clear to you, you'll find that you don't have to worry about convenience spending because you're going to know, nope, I don't need that candy bar. That extra $5 for that and that magazine, that's going to go to that's going to this thing that I'm working on. That's going to the down payment on the house. Yeah, the decision fatigue cost. Yeah, you know what? I don't have to make a decision on this thing because the answer is no. I am not going to go on that bachelor party trip for 3 days and spend $2,500 because I am working towards getting, my first $100,000 saved up and getting my financial footing down. Lifestyle creep. I don't have to worry about whether or not I have earned this thing or not because I'm getting ready to launch my business. And because I'm getting ready to launch that business, I know I need capital. So instead of spending on a new car that I could totally afford and that I have totally earned through my hard work and blood and sweat and tears that I have put into my job, I'm going to save that extra 20 grand that I would use between the trade-in and the new car. And I'm going to take that 20 grand and I'm going to invest it in this business that I'm using to build because I'm excited and I'm passionate about this. That is why answering those questions is so important because it makes all of these other trivial things that we deal with as humans totally irrelevant in some ways. Now, I'm not saying that having perfect clarity and executing on that plan totally alleviates all temptation. Okay. I'm a living example right here. Okay. I went out the other day and, was with my son. We went to the card store. We bought a couple basketball cards and Pokemon cards, different things like that. And I said, you know what? I was like, there's a card I really want. That thing is awesome. Looks great. $400. I'm taking it. Boom. And I did. And I didn't follow my toast every 10 method. It wasn't tied to a goal. I didn't do anything like that. I just was like, dude, I have had a rough 3 weeks. And you know what? This probably is going to be a pretty good investment. I did justify it that way. Went on and bought it. Guess what? It's been a great investment. I bought it low. It's already up 30%. But I digress. The point is, I don't make a lot of those mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I don't make a lot of those mistakes because I know, man, I'm getting ready to open this business over here with Fairway Bays with my brother, and I need capital for that. I have another secret project that I'm working on that, guess what? That's going to take a little bit of capital. I am enjoying growing Life Builder, my business, my podcast, the media, my brand, everything. I'm having so much fun doing this, but that takes money. So why would I go spend money on this thing over here when I know I can put it back into that and I can get a 10x return in my business from it? So that's the power of clarity around those questions. It's going to make the convenience spending. It makes the decision fatigue. It makes, lifestyle creep in all of its forms just so minimal and you don't have to deal with it so much. And on top of it, hopefully just like what you see in me right now or hear in me, if you're listening to this, it's like it's the excitement. You know what you're doing. You know what you're building towards. Okay? That's the power of clarity in your finances. So those are the 3 silent financial killers that nobody's budging for: convenience spending, decision fatigue costs, and lifestyle creep. Pay attention to those in your life. Ask the question where you can eliminate those things. And one of the best ways to do it is just going back to those 3 simple life-changing questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? And how are you going to get it?